Hi, I'm Fred, head coach at Yousuli. Welcome to the Epic Endurance podcast, where we take a deep dive into endurance, strength, and conditioning. Today, we're going to talk about how to qualify for Ironman World Championship and Ironman and 70.3 World Championship. I thought this was a good idea because Kona is coming back. That is to say that the full distance championship will again be held entirely in Kona in the future years. This video is not about a breakdown of the course. I might do another video about this in another time. Today, we are just going to talk about how to qualify, what does it take, and what are the different pathways that exist for qualifying. We're going to break down things into a couple of groups. Our first group will be pro triathletes. Now, first you have to become or be a pro triathlete. You can get this by podiuming or in an Ironman sanctioned race or being very, very close to the finish time, I believe. And you have to pay a yearly fee of about $900. Usually that requires you to do a sub-8 Ironman if you're a male athlete and sub-9 if you're a female athlete. So it's extremely competitive. To qualify for Kona is even more so difficult. You could be one of the best pro athletes in the world. Only 100 pro athletes will be invited to Kona, 50 male and 50 female. So if you didn't have the best season, then you might not just make the qualifying time. We talked about the cost. Pro athletes usually don't pay for their entry races. They pay a yearly $900 fee for Ironman Pro Pass, but for Kona they will have to pay another extra $1,400 plus local taxes, which I think are $200. If they have sponsors, the sponsor can cover them, but if they don't, then it's out of pocket. Obviously, qualifying in itself requires you to attend races, which again might need lodging, traveling expenses. It is not absurd to think that most of pro athletes have to spend between $5,000 to $10,000 a year just to qualify. The Kona trip cost is going to be around roughly 5 to 10k USD if you account for global travel, international travel. So you'll have the flight cost, the hotel, you're shipping the bike, making sure things are around. So that's another cost. Not every sponsor take care of these things, but it's costly. Obviously, being a pro triathlete can be financially rewarding if you win. If you don't, like most pros, that is kind of pretty heavy on the bank account. Next group is going to be age groupers, and age groupers are everyone else which is not a pro or not in a specific category. I believe that there are about 2,000 to 2,500 slots for age groupers in the Ironman race, and you can find these slots by finishing in the top of your field in your age group. Many races will have a certain number of slots. There might be between 1 to 4 slots per age group and per gender, depending on the race. So some race will have more because they want people to go there, and some race will have less. If a person cannot or does not want to take his slot, then it usually rolls down, so the next person down the line. So maybe there's 2 slots, but the 2 first one don't want it, then number 3 or 4 will have a shot. Again, knowing that they will have to take the burden of traveling, expenses, and whatnot. Like we said, entry fee is going to be still $1,400 plus $200 taxes, and then you will have, again, travel expenses, hotel, which are going to be at the premium price in Kona during the week. If you're traveling with family, then the cost can add up. So for a lot of people, traveling to Kona and doing this might be a trip that is going to cost between $10,000 to $20,000. Most age groupers don't qualify to Kona on their first try. Even the most competitive types will require 2 to 3 times at the very least. And of course, like a lot of hours. Now, being an age grouper and finishing in the top 1 to 2% in your field is pretty difficult. I made an online calculator that I will show you at the end where you can see what kind of time you have to do. Professional athletes have a lot of time to train and usually train anywhere between 20 to 35 hours. Age groupers have to deal with other life realities, having a job, for most of us, having children for some of us, family, spouse. These things can take time away from training and makes being competitive very hard, especially when some athlete on the field can allocate more time to train. Generally speaking, we're talking about still very, very competitive, a 9 to 10 hours Ironman finish time for men and maybe 10 to 11 hours Ironman finish time for female athletes. So this is already exceptional times. There are usually about 40 slots for 2,000 participants in a race. So most Ironman races around the world have about 2,000 people, give or take, and usually you have about 40 slots that are broken down into groups. That means that you are in the top 2% of this group if you manage to get a slot. Then the next way to qualify is the Ironman Legacy program, which is kind of a rewarding system where if you have completed 12 Ironman over the last 12 years and you have never been in Kona, you can enroll to this, and then there is a lottery system rewarded from taking part into so many events and then get a slot from Kona. You will have to apply for the Legacy membership, which I believe is $50 for the entry, putting your name in a ballot. And then if your name is coming out, then you'll have to again pay the $1,400 plus $200 fees for the registration and then accommodation and traveling. Since there are no speed requirement, most people just have to finish Ironman races. Even if you were finishing just before the cutoff time, you can have a slot. Your slot will not be guaranteed in the first year. It might take 1, 2, 3, 4 years before this. As long as you keep on racing, then I believe that you have very high chance to being invited to Kona and join. Then you have the physically challenged PC category, so para-triathlon, para-athletes. You usually have 5 slots that are coming through the lottery, and there are also a handful of slots that are coming through special qualifying rules. Yeah, there's a lottery for the PC Open also, which gives 5 slots, adding to that worldwide for para-triathletes. The para-triathletes don't have to be the fastest athletes, but they have to have completed a 17.3 or full Ironman to be able to take part of this slot program. Cost-wise, it's going to be costly. Obviously, again, we're talking about traveling with specialized equipment. Some para-triathletes will have to have specialized equipment for both the run and the bike. Some athletes will also need a guide. These obviously increase the cost of lodging or traveling or moving things around. So as a para-triathlete, things can get very costly. Usually they can find organization and sponsors to try to cover the cost of these things. But if they don't, then this is even more expensive than if it were for an age grouper. Just to give you an idea, like normally a handy cycle is going to be between 5 to 10K. A racing wheelchair is going to be between 3 to 5K maybe. Prosthetics for people that need them might be over $10,000. So things can get very, very expensive, and they might also need a team around them, medical, logistics, support, and whatnot. And then you have 2 other main way. You'll have the lottery or the raffle. The lottery aspect is only via charity and raffles and local highway draw. Donations were like between $50 and $100. This is for raising money for a charitable cause and people that were selected. I do believe that like there are about 10 slots at Global Foundation and maybe 15 slots for the local Hawaiian residents. There's a random drawing. You don't need to have any qualifying race. It's just a pure luck. You'll still have to finish the race. The odds are to get selected through this method are below 1%, as there are only 10 slots. If you're selected, you still need to pay the Kona entry fee of $1,400 and the trip, but you did not have to do and have any prior race experience. This is potentially the cheapest way to qualify for Kona, as this is you're doing a donation, which is probably tax deductible, and if you're lucky, you have 1 chance out of 100, maybe a bit less, then you can have an entry for Kona. Last but not least are all the VIP exclusive pathways. There is a specific group called Exclusive Challenge, where athletes pay a premium price for races, usually between $7,000 to $15,000 for VIP services on race, on site. And these athletes compete between themselves. So the best athletes in these groups might get a Kona qualifying slot. So the pool is much smaller, but still people can get very competitive. And then as an exclusive athlete, it comes back to the same thing. You still have to pay the same cost or more if you keep on being part of the exclusive package to go to Kona. In this case, this is for people who don't see money as an issue or a limiting factor and are able to want to enjoy the best service possible, then they get kind of preferential treatment. I believe that there are about 25 slots for the Exclusive Challenge, so it's still a very limited pool compared to the 2,500 slots that were for the age groupers. And then you also have auction and charity that are 2 other ways. The auction is basically trying to bid for a Kona slot. You don't need to have shown any kind of performance before to bid for this. The auction price, the winning bid amount is usually between $30,000 and $50,000 for having a qualifying bid. As for fundraising, you try again to raise about the same amount of money for a charitable cause, but it's probably part of things. And usually people raise about the same amount, between $40,000 and $50,000. So if you have a lot of money, and you can definitely bid your way into Kona if you're willing to spend 50, 60, 70,000 US dollars, and you will probably secure a spot. Fundraising does not necessarily mean that you will have a slot. Usually the number one fundraiser is the person that get the slot. So if you're fundraising just a few $1,000s, and you probably don't have a chance, as there is about 1 to 5 slots for the fundraising opportunity. And then there is another path, which is the wildcard path, which is when Ironman invites you as a special guest, either because you're a celebrity or because you have an interesting story. They think that your mediatic profile is good and they want you in the race, and you might receive an invitation, or if you have contact them and they take a liking in your story, then they might bring you to the island. Obviously, many different ways. Qualifying in itself is expensive, and going to Kona is going to be expensive. I'm just going to show you what it takes as an age grouper to qualify for Kona. I made this another calculator called the Ironman N70.3 World Qualifying Time Calculator. The question to answer is how fast to get to Worlds. So I've been using online data, everything that I could scrape, and this is not perfect, but it can give you an idea. Like we said, some races have a strong rolling down, and because of the high cost, some athletes cannot afford to go to Kona simply, even if they want to, or they might have been to Kona, they don't want to do it again. Either way, this is what it will take to get into a podium generally as an age grouper. And if you find yourself very, very far from these numbers, then it might be a little bit more challenging. It doesn't mean that it's impossible, but a bit more challenging. Here you have a couple of sections. Section number 1 is the basic qualifying range. We can choose a gender. I will choose men, and then I will choose my age group, and then I will choose a course difficulty. Now I broke it down course into 3: easy, average, and hard, based on the bike. I know that the swim can change things and the run, but the highest time variable is going to be the bike. A mountainous bike is going to slow athlete down quite a bit, whereas a flat bike is going to improve the speed of the group as a whole. So if we're to choose average for a person of my age, the range for qualifying is going to be between 9 hours 30 and 10 hours 15. For a 70.3, making a 5 hour is definitely not going to cut it. You want to be a little faster than this. You can see also here your finish time and percentile. So if I say I do an Ironman 70.3 and I have done this into, not my time, but let's say you finished your 70.3 into that time, then based on men finisher and my age group, I've been faster than 62%. So I already beat the average. You can see if you're already beating the average, which might be a goal in itself. If you want to go faster, and we're going 4 hours and 30, then we're faster than 93% of the male athletes. Like we said, that might just be enough. In this case, I think this is probably enough to qualify. If you're an athlete of my age and you're racing around 4 hours and 30 on the 70.3, you definitely have a shot, not for Ironman, but for Ironman 70.3 Worlds. Last one, here you can choose percentile, and you can type I'm rebel, I'm a woman, and I want to be in the top 98th percentile, then usually finish in 4 hours 20 or faster. As a man, below 4 hours, which are extremely fast times. I have added some notes, some things I mentioned before. If the Ironman XC, the exclusive challenge, interests you, can look at this. Obviously, this list is prone to change, but I think as a guideline, this can help you see what it takes to qualify. I hope that this was useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and I will see you next time.